So currently, the PlayStation community is losing their minds as a collective to know that a PlayStation first-party game is the worst game ever released. Yes, this game is doing so bad that it has the entire industry talking. How could Sony make such a flop? How could the PlayStation community not even want to play this if they are getting the game free?
I hate it here! I hate it here! I want to go home!
It is unheard of. Yes, this is the worst.
In a lot of flops throughout the years when it comes to live service launches, but Concord, ladies and gentlemen, this is really, really sad how tepid the launch was. And this is a game that's been worked on for a long time. It came out not too long ago, and if day one launch numbers are any indication, I would say Concord is as good as dead.
And although there are still some PlayStation guys who are convincing themselves that, hear what, Concord is a very, very good game.
Firewalk, they released Concord officially today. So, you know, I really enjoy this game a lot.
Yo, shout out to Season, man. Yo, I'm not the big son. This nigga put big.
But then again, there are some Sony fans who are saying we didn't even ask for this altogether.
Oh, Sony doesn't get an exemption letter, right? But what I really want to talk about, right, is having a conversation on Twitter. Everybody's, you know, or some people are telling me give it a chance or whatever, because this is what we asked for. We're like now all of a sudden we're the ones asking for a multiplayer game. Apparently it was us. PlayStation console gamers were asking for Sony to deliver more multiplayer. Okay, all right. Let's talk about that. So you're telling me that it was us that influenced Sony to strategize a live service strategy that had to include PC. So we want games on PC day one, because that's their strategy. In order for the strategy to work, it has to be on PC, because live service strategy requires more players. So we want games to go on. PlayStation console gamers want games to be made on PC. First party games. That's us. So that's our idea. We strategize this. We demanded Sony to come up with something that ultimately required games on PC. No, we didn't do that. None of us. Let's stop lying. It's only a few people that are asking for multiplayer. And here's the crazy part. Sony doesn't even completely trust the PlayStation fan base to make their live service game successful.
He's out of line, but he's right.
So yes, right now the discussion is still raging on about Concord and the debacle that Sony put themselves in. But enough of all that. Today, let's talk about the latest gaming topics around the internet. And of course, we'll talk about Avowed. Persons are complaining that this game is running at 30 FPS. We will talk about it. So you know what? Let's get it.
This is a sickness.
Let's get it. So before we continue the video, guys, please consider subscribing if you're looking for this type of content. We give you great Xbox news, of course, a little bit of Nintendo thrown in there, and of course the Sony Pony delicious salt from the Ganges Mountains. Yeah, buddy. So if this interests you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Let's get back to the video. First up, let's talk about Sony. Right now, Sony is asking their Japanese consumers that... Guess what? I know how they live in Tokyo and the whole of Japan. The PlayStation gamers would be paying an extra 20% if they want to purchase a brand new PlayStation 5. The question is, why is Sony raising the PlayStation 5 4 years after this console has been released? We know that over the years, the cost to manufacture the PlayStation 5 and any other console would have decreased. So what is the justification for raising the console more than 20% for the PlayStation 5? Would the Japanese people speak with their wallet and tell Sony that this is unacceptable to be raising a console 4 years after it has been released? Very anti-consumer. Let me hear what you think about it in the comment sections below. Next up, let's talk about the Nintendo Direct it had today, the partner showcase, also the indie showcase they had. Today they showed a number of different games, a number of shovelware games, a number of chibi games and so forth, but they had a few titles that we could talk about. I mean, they had the remake for the Suikoden games. That was a popular title back in the day. This is a remake. We will have 1 and 2 in this particular game. In addition to this game, the Suikoden games, we also saw they showed Dragon Quest, a remake of Dragon Quest, and this remake of Dragon Quest would be in the style of the HD 2D style. So a lot of Dragon Quest fans will be looking for that. We also saw they had a Castlevania collection, giving persons all the different Castlevanias from the Nintendo DS and so forth. So, a few little titles here and there. They even showed the SNK, so Street Fighter versus SNK. In addition to that, they showed the Marvel versus SNK. Now, this, again, is not available for the Xbox, but Microsoft would need to work with Capcom to see how best they can get this game running on the Xbox platform, because there are a lot of fighting fans on the Xbox. But what this Nintendo Direct did is basically lay the groundwork for the reveal of the Nintendo Switch 2. They said this is basically just clearing the slate so that Nintendo would be, able to announce the Switch 2 in the upcoming Nintendo Direct. So what do you think about that? Do you think that the Nintendo Direct, the next Nintendo Direct, would reveal the Switch 2? Would it be able to compete with the Xbox handheld? We'll have to wait and see. But let me know what you thought about everything that was shown in the Direct in the comment sections below. Next up, Black Myth Wukong is continuing to do extremely well on all platforms that it has been released, both on Steam and on PlayStation 5. What they are saying is that, this game have sold, I think the number is like 14 million in 4 days or 14 million in a week. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, it's still doing well. Well, we just had the first set of reviews for the PlayStation, and guess what? Just as what I said in the last video, this game is not running well according to the reviewers. Notice what the Metacritic is. Yes, the Metacritic is way lower than what the PC version is showing us here. We even have a statement from Push Square, a PlayStation website. Notice what they said. It takes time for Black Myth Wukong's comeback to truly click. But when it does, this is one of the most creative action titles on PS5. One after another, its spectacular boss battles steal the show. A procession of memorable encounters that showcase the game's incredible artistry. As a whole, however, the experience is held back by limited level design and frustrating technical issues on the PlayStation 5. A damn shame, since Wukong is pure monkey magic at its peak. So yes, it's very clear that a PlayStation website is saying here what the PlayStation 5 version has technical issues. We have been telling these ponies that, but they said, we are capping. But at least they heard it from a PlayStation website. We know that this game is being optimized for the Xbox Series X and S, and I hope they have it running beautifully for when this game is released on the Xbox platform. But let me hear what you think about Black Myth Wukong's reviews on the PlayStation 5. Is it running silky smooth for you ponies, like Egyptian silk? Let me know in the comment sections below. Let's now talk about Avowed, and that is the game you are watching right now being played on your screen. Now, this game is made by Obsidian, and this game was shown at Gamescom. Now, it showed really well at Gamescom, so much so that there's a lot of previews about this game right now on YouTube. Now, one of the things that happened at Gamescom with Avowed is that the guys there at Is It Finding Duke would have had an interview with the developers at Obsidian. and they asked them a lot of questions, but one of the answers caught the ears of gamers. Now let's listen carefully and see what the Obsidian team answered, what they said about the question that was asked.
Talk about this part right now, but I was curious about console performance, specifically the Series X. Can we talk frame rates at this time, or we're waiting a little?
I'm
Not yet.
probably not the best person to.
Oh, sorry, talking off mic. I'm probably not the best person to talk about that. We can probably. We can probably.
Yeah, I mean, nitty gritty of it. Performance is one of the last things we figure out, right? We are core, and I think we've announced this elsewhere. We are core targeting 30 frames per second bare minimum. Like that's the expectation. It's a first-person single-player game. You don't necessarily need that 60 frames, and that allows us to get a lot juicier with VFX and lighting and all this other stuff. So it's a trade-off we opted to make relatively early, and we're really happy with that. I mean, the game's running pretty smooth for how visually dense it is, and that was always our goal. But as far as like a greater understanding of performance spec, we're still figuring all that out. It's one of the last things you do. So yeah.
That frame rate, right?
Yes, because we
Frame
did
rate,
ask
we
the
played on
question.
PC again.
Yes, we played on PC.
Yeah.
We played on PC.
And that was fine.
And that was fine. That was definitely feeling 60 to me, if not higher.
Yeah, that was 60.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Now I asked a specific question in the interview in reference to the frame rate, and then I was just like, "Hey, what's the performance looking like a console?" So we got a little pause, and then they were like, "Well, for now, our baseline is like 30. That's what we're shooting for."
Yeah.
So that's what they're saying officially right now. We'll see what happens with the Series X. Maybe they can get that to 60, like a Starfield situation. But they're towing the line for now on 30. So I had to ask for you guys because I knew it was gonna come up. What's the console's performing, bro? Because
So there you have it. Avowed is running at 30 frames per second on console at release, but it would have an unlocked frame rate on PC. Now, is this a deal breaker? Well, some would say no, it's not a deal breaker. Starfield launched at 30 FPS and that played well. Persons had a lot of fun. Persons played that game to its completion at 30 frames per second. Now, would they preferred 60 frames per second? Of course they would have preferred 60 frames per second. Who wouldn't? But the point is that the game is still playable and you can still enjoy the full game at 30 FPS. Now, what is funny is that the outrage the PlayStation gamers in particular had for this game announcing at 30 FPS. You heard what the developers said. The developers said that it was their choice to focus on the fidelity of the game, how the game looked compared to, how it ran when it comes to frame rate. That's their choice. Whether it's the right choice to make or not, that's on them. But they decided to focus on those things, how the game looked compared to how it ran on console out the door. We know that these consoles are more than capable of running Avowed at 60 frames per second, just like how we saw that even the Series S later on is running Starfield at 60 FPS, even 120 FPS. So look at this. The so-called weakest console this generation, the Xbox Series S, is running Starfield at 80 frames a second, 70 frames a second, over that, right, in performance mode. So it's very clear that these consoles, the Xbox Series consoles, could run these games at a very high frame rate. So if you're going to use the argument that the reason why Avowed is launching at 30 FPS is because of the Series S, you have to miss me with that, because it's clear that the Series S could perform at a very high level. The thing is, the gaming industry is upset that Avowed is running at 30 FPS. But you know what's funny about this whole thing? When Microsoft released a game at 30 FPS, they are heavily criticized. I mean, how could Microsoft dare release a game at 30 FPS? But when another company releases a game at 30 FPS, it's like, we would prefer a 60, but we can let it slide. I'll give you an example. When Dragon's Dogma came out, the general public received that game well, despite it was releasing at 30 FPS. Yes, this game received very good Metacritic scores. In addition to that, it sold well. So persons had no problem buying Dragon's Dogma at 30 FPS. I'll give you another example. When Nintendo Tears of the Kingdom was released, that game received massive praise, and rightfully so. It was a good game, but persons were barely talking about the frame rate. Persons had no problem enjoying Tears of the Kingdom at 30 FPS and lower. So then why is it a major and big issue when Xbox releases a game at 30 FPS? The Tears of the Kingdom went on to sell 20 million copies, showing that games are playable at 30 FPS. So 30 FPS should not be a major issue for anyone who wants to play, any game. So when persons are making such a big deal that Avowed is running at 30 FPS, you have to miss me with that, right? Miss me with that, because it's very clear that all of these other developers, when they are running their games at 30, it's okay. They reviewed well, they sold well, and persons enjoyed it. So let me hear what you thought about what was said today, what you thought about the PlayStation 5 getting a price increase. What did you think about the Nintendo Direct? Is the Switch 2 close at hand? And what is your opinion on Avowed running at 30 FPS? Is this a deal breaker? Is this game practically broken? It cannot be played at 30 FPS? Let me know in the comment sections below. But don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos. I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.